One time, this guy told me that he had thoughts about, like, killing his wife and kids. The fact that we're so vulnerable, like, in our underwear or naked even, it makes people feel, like, vulnerable themselves to, like, tell us, like, the darkest, deepest stuff. They may have a lot of shame about it, you know, but the fact that we're whores is, like, what's more shameful than a whore? I can tell anything to.
Right. It truly is topless therapy. I know that not all dancers and sex workers take that approach.
I know. Well, it's hard.
On October 25th, the country's first law that partially decriminalizes sex work went into effect in Maine.
I don't believe that when you buy somebody else's body for whatever you want to do with it, to me that's not much short of slavery.
And it's putting voluntary sex workers at odds with advocates for trafficking victims.
I use the term sex work in quotations, but it's sexual exploitation.
They say that those engaging in sexual services are victims. And that does not describe me nor the hundreds, if not thousands of other women I've worked with across both Maine and the United States.
This is the main problem with sex work.
Really what I'm known for is a fighter for women's rights, and particularly to end violence against women. That's really been the cornerstone of what I've done for 50, 60 years. I was the one who pushed the very first gay rights bill in the state in 1976. At the time, I didn't know I was a lesbian. Go figure. That's my wife, and I came to these two because we
Lois Reckitt is the state lawmaker behind the partial decriminalization law that passed back in June. It was her second attempt before her term ends next year.
A young friend of mine who was a police officer in Portland who worked on what they call the track. He came to me one day and said, I can't stand this. We arrest people and they're back right away and nothing changes. And so I said, well, go ahead. Tell me what we ought to do about it. He said, I found this Nordic model. I think this is it.
The Nordic model partially decriminalizes prostitution, meaning selling sex is no longer a crime, but buying it is. This is not a step towards full decriminalization, where sex workers and buyers would not be criminalized.
The hope is that we can penalize the buyers, make the fines they pay used to help the women recover, and make it possible for them to build new lives.
Before the law was enacted, people caught selling sex for the first time faced a $1,000 fine, up to 6 months in jail, and a misdemeanor charge, which could have serious impacts on job applications, housing, child custody, and much more. The goal with the Nordic model, also known as the equality model, is to eradicate sex work altogether.
I don't think you can say that, I'm doing this because I love doing sex work. First of all, I have not talked to an awful lot of people who said that, but I know that people do say that, and I don't believe it. It not only hurts the people who are used, it also hurts every woman in this society.
I really enjoy my job. Human beings are social creatures. We need connection, we need intimacy, we need loving, consensual touch in our lives. Pumpkin spice. I have 2 bachelor degrees. I very much wanted to pursue a doctorate. I was very interested in neurobiology.
I never knew that. That's amazing.
Working in laboratories?
Yeah, I was trying to develop this new cancer research drug.
Oh my God, what a hard pivot.
Juliet is 27 years old. We're using the name she uses as a dancer and escort.
A lot of people find me on TikTok and will go follow my different channels, stuff like that, and often reach out on Instagram. So, like I have this person here. When are you free this week? Any chance I come to you now and spend $4,000 to $5,000?
Her friend is also a sex worker. She asked us to hide her face and call her Vivian.
It's essential to my financial stability. It is my income, my lifeline.
Right, and it's not my personal life. The services I give to customers are not things that I'm doing for myself. I first heard about Maine's new partial decriminalization legislation in the strip club. A customer pulled up the article online and said, "Hey, look at this. So what do you think? Can we get out of here?" And I was shocked. Partial decriminalization is harmful. It creates an unsafe environment. It criminalizes clients and buyers, and having any portion of us criminalized just further marginalizes us and pushes us underground and isolates us. If a client is concerned about prosecution, they are more likely to scam a provider, not pay them. They are more likely to seek out dangerous locations. They might even be shameful of themselves and therefore treat their provider with violence.
The true scope of the violence against sex workers is severely underreported, especially in areas where prostitution is still criminalized and sex workers avoid going to law enforcement out of fear of arrest. The data we do have shows sex workers who are trans, people of color, migrants, or experiencing poverty face an even greater risk of assaults and murder. And the perpetrators are not just buyers, it's traffickers too.
People are usually brought to me by referral.
Trisha Grant is on the front lines of helping people exploited in the sex trade, which in Maine is mostly girls in their teens and 20s.
I got a message on Messenger from somebody who was looking for help for a 16-year-old who was in the hospital. Her traffickers were from her own community. They were in their 20s. They started selling her that lie of like, you can have a better life, we can give you more. It was a lot of just that manipulation of parental control and helping her to remove herself from that. I was trafficked as a 15-year-old. It does hit home a little harder. I was 14 when my son was born, and I was living in my own apartment. I just turned 15, and a friend of mine and I were at Denny's. We're talking about how difficult it was to pay bills and how hard it was to stay in school, and for me, raise my son, and that I was afraid that if I didn't raise him perfect, he was going to be taken away from me. There were two men listening to our conversation, and they approached our table and they had said, "Hey, you know, we overheard your conversation. We have something you might be interested in." We shrugged shoulders and just say, "Sure, why not?" You know, and they said, "Okay, go to this brown apartment building, go up to the 3rd floor." And when we got up there, they raped us. And when they were done, they gave me a pager and they said, you know, when this pager goes off, you better show up where and when we tell you to, or your son's going to be taken away from you. I did what they told me to do, and that was my life for a year and a half. We were brought to strip clubs. Sometimes we were brought to bachelor parties. We were brought to hotels. We were brought to truck stops. There was a lot of violence. I had somebody who regularly bought me just to strangle me. I personally will never believe that sex work can be work. The majority of the people, even who say that they're out there willingly selling sex, have trauma in their history, have some story that brought them to that place. Would any of us want to force our own children or our siblings or our sisters and brothers, like anybody, into a line of sex work?
It is such a privilege for us to be able to choose our clients.
Say we got full decriminalization, but we don't want legalization because we don't want the regulatory burden.
Right.
So, like, does it have a place between being decriminalized and not legalized? Like,
right, decriminalized but not over-regulated.
yeah,
right? Like
it's a double.
being told when, where, how much to charge, what services to provide, who we are providing it to. That sounds like hell to me.
What I had heard from the Canadian folks, the biggest mistake they made was they didn't train police early enough.
Lois and Trisha have been working together for the last few years on the partial decriminalization law alongside national trafficking survivor advocates. And in September, they began meeting to figure out how to implement it.
You're in a crunch, Lois, as far as anything that we might want to present as far as emergency bills. We have to get those in.
I think most of you know that my health is in flux right now. I don't know what's going on, except that my cancer's back. I'm trying to make sure I do is get as much as I can get done, because I'm likely to start on chemo right away.
I wish I had more time. I hope I will have more time, but I don't know. It's the uncertainty right now that's hard. You know, I could be here 10 years from now. You know, and I might not be here a year from now. I don't know. So you can't plan ahead, you just work. Basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to find every place in state government where a program is happening that could be applicable to this population if only the women knew about it, and if only the people who are managing these programs knew not only how to find the people and help the people, but to do it in a way that is not patronizing or mean-spirited or why the heck are you doing this anyway kind of attitude. So I'm trying to educate both ends of the spectrum, the recovering prostitutes to trust the system and to make the system work for them. This bill is a way that I feel like it's my mark on the state statutes that can help women. This one feels like one that would not have happened if I had not been a bull moose trying to make this happen.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.